Good morning, it's Wednesday, October 3rd, and this is To My Liberal Friends. I want to go back to the vice presidential debate for a moment. There was one important part of the debate that seems to have been ignored. Ever since Donald Trump chose J.D. Vance to be his running mate, the media, cheered on by Democrats, have cast Vance in the most unfavorable light. They've called him weird and tried to put out any statement he made that might contradict Trump's position on issues. It's true that Vance was not a fan of Donald Trump when he ran for the Senate in Ohio. Much of that could be attributed to Trump endorsing his opponent in the primary. So going into the debate, there was an important objective for J.D. Vance. He needed to reintroduce himself to American voters who only knew him through the media that they follow. They've heard him that he was weird. They've seen memes where he called women childless, catless ladies. They've seen one picture after another demonizing, mocking, and attempting to invent a cartoon character of their version of J.D. Vance. In other words, the media's basically dehumanized him. But after watching him on the debate this week, even many of my Democratic friends and many in the liberal had to admit that Vance won the debate and looked the best on that stage. Vance has learned a thing or two from battling a hostile press. It's helped him. Walz, who's avoided them just as Harris does, and it showed that night. He did what Biden did. He stared with a terrified look on his face as Vance spoke. But for Vance, there isn't a nasty question he hasn't already had the answer at least 10 times. If you've been watching his press conferences, as I have, you already know he can handle them. He was born to do this. You can tell he's about to give a really good answer because he blinks very slowly to show he's tolerating their terrible question as he locks and loads the answer. But it wasn't so much how he battled the moderators around, always a fun thing to watch, but how he directed his message straight at us, the American people, those of us watching at home. Did he change any minds? He might have, especially among women voters who have only seen the media's caricature of him. As I watched the debate, some of the things that bothered me that Vance didn't mention, I realized just how adept he was at keeping the focus on the issues. For instance, Tim Walz had one good moment when he mentioned the 2020 election on January 6th. J.D. Vance sidestepped to answering the question, even though I thought he should have just said Trump lost. At first, he thought he should hit back at that. What I think he should have done, he should have brought up Tim Walz's failure to protect Minneapolis. He should have brought up the violence all throughout the summer in cities around the country. He should have asked why Democrats have allowed anti-Semitism to be so blatant on liberal campuses, destroying property and threatening Jewish students. He would have highlighted the reason Harris passed on the logical choice to be a running mate, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, who apparently was too Jewish for the left wing of her party. In USA Today, a decidedly pro-Harris publication, Dave Potus wrote, quote, "My biggest takeaway is that I was wrong about Vance. After his selection as Trump's running mate, I argued that Vance was a weak choice for Republicans. But while I remain far from the senator's biggest fan, he proved he can effectively blend Trump's political record with actual policy points." End quote. In The Atlantic, another liberal magazine, they said this about the debate, quote, "Tim Walz stumbled and struggled on the debate stage in New York last night, while J.D. Vance spoke smoothly and effectively." End quote. I really enjoyed reading Joe Klein in Substack. Klein's a loyal Democrat and hates anything conservative politician utters. But here's what he wrote, quote, "Well, we saw the high school studies teacher destroyed by a professional politician last night. This wasn't as bad as Biden's debilitated performance in June, but it was close. Tim Walz was incompetent." End quote. And allow me one more. Scott Jennings wrote in the LA Times, another liberal newspaper, quote, "And Vance delivered in spades. From the opening bell, Walz was nervous, overmatched, and out of his depth, especially when dealing with foreign policy matters such as the ongoing attacks on Israel. Walz simply wandered into the wrong bar, and as the night wore on, it became evident that Kamala Harris, the Democratic president nominee, made a lousy choice. Somewhere, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, perhaps the most talented young communicator in the Democratic Party, and the running mate that Harris should have chosen, must have been laughing hysterically or screaming into his pillow." End quote. That last sentence said it all. Shapiro was the best choice, but by now we all know why he was left at the starting gate. He was too Jewish. The election will be like the last two, very close. It will come down to a couple of states, and if Trump wins Pennsylvania, then Harris will be done in politics for her massive mistake in choosing Walz over Shapiro. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.